It's that time of year again. Yes, it's Halloween. Halloween is probably my favorite occasion, aside from Christmas. I just love the autumn and spooky aesthetic surrounding it. Last year, I kitbashed a little Night Lord diorama, which came out pretty good. I was originally going to do another Night Lord this Halloween, but I thought I'd save that idea for later, as I want to do the first claw from the Night Lord's omnibus. So, who will I do instead? Who could I do? Is it getting hot in here, or is it me? Yes, that's right, the Legion of the Damned. I love these spooky skeleton dudes, and their mysterious lore, which I'll go into later in the video. Their whole aesthetic is perfect for a Halloween video. With the fire, bones, and chain, they'll also be a challenge to kitbash. And where there's fire, there's green stuff. I do like green stuff, but I'm very inexperienced at fire. I did it once when I first got into the hobby, and it didn't work out very well. But since then, I've brushed up on my green stuff knowledge from tutorials for this video. Alright, enough stalling. Let's begin. Woo. Let's get started with this Mark III tactical squad from the Horus Heresy. I think this armor looks awesome and heavy. It will work well with the old beaten up aesthetic of the Legion of the Damned. So let's grab a body and some legs. Excellent. Oh wait, shoulder pads. I can't be forgetting things already. I haven't even opened the glue yet. I also thought it would be a cool idea to grab a studded shoulder pad and a backpack from the Mark VI Tactical Squad sprue, also from the Horus Heresy. I'm going to see how it looks before I make a final decision on if they stay. I clean the scary mold line pieces off with my knife. There's tons of them on these Horus Heresy miniatures, and it's kind of a slog. These miniatures look great, but there's so many. So, after blunting my knife, I begin gluing pieces together. That's better. Now I can forget things without feeling guilty. First, I glued the studded shoulder pad, then the torsos and the legs. I also tried gluing the Mark VI backpack on, but I had to snip and scrape away a bit, blocking it. But, there we go. Look, he's even standing by himself, without a head or arms. Spooky.
Not really.
Shut up, it's Halloween, and it's spooky if I say so. Next up, some heresy. I grabbed some Khorne Berserker sprues looking for accessories to attach. This chained holster has a skull attached, suitable for a damned legionnaire. Next, I grab a Chaos Legionnaire squad sprue, looking for some arms and mighty weapons. I'm doing this as I want my guy to look worn down, using brutal and cursed weaponry not too dissimilar from Chaos. I mean, they are flaming undead space marines after all. It's not like they'll have newly forged gear. Unless... While I stare at the sprue, I ponder on the backpack and decide I don't think it fits. I respectfully rip off the Mark VI pack before cutting a Mark III backpack from its sprue, and clean even more mold lines off before sticking that on. I'll still make use of the Mark VI shoulder pad though. There, I think that looks much better. Time for the weapon arms. I snip off this little pistol. I love the gap in the magazine for the bullets. I'll definitely have some kind of fire effect on that. I then snip off this cool ass trench mace and then an arm for it. I think this weapon is suitably brutal and really gives me some grungy vibes. I clean up these bits too. I swear mold lines are haunting me with every bit I choose. I glue the mace to the arm and also cut the blade off the pistol, flattening the area, making it seem like it was never there. As cool as it was, the blade was a bit too chaosy. I then cut away at the holster and chains from the Berserker kit to make it fit a little better. Attaching the pistol arm was easy, but I had to slice into the shoulder area to allow the Mark VI pad to sit well. The mace arm then went on without any issue too, before I stuck on the Mark III shoulder pad. Looking pretty cool. Time to mess him up. Grabbing my knife, I stab into his chest plate and begin drilling, just making a small indent for the drill to then carve out a more round, wider hole. This guy got shot right in the heart. I then go back in with my knife, slicing some small scratches around the bullet hole where the explosion would have ricocheted some metal. I also cut into the Mark III shoulder pad, the studs in the Mark VI shoulder pad, and put another bullet hole in his knee pad. Time for a skull. I grabbed the Battlefield Trophies kit on the hunt for a suitable noggin for this guy. I was initially thinking of using the screaming skull. It didn't look good, so I even toyed with the idea of putting it on the pistol, but unfortunately it didn't sit well anywhere, so I ended up going for the regular closed mouth skull. While I was doing this, I spotted a little gap between the holster and the hip, which really irritated me. So to fix it, I broke out the scary spooooky. I plugged the gap and smoothed it over with some regular plastic glue, like it was never there. After this, I had to clean even more mold lines. This video has turned into a psychological horror about mold lines, I swear. After that nightmare is done, I grab a bit of brass rod. Since I'll be doing green stuff later, I need something to hold the skull in place, so I'll be pinning it to the body. I snip the brass rod and make an indent in the skull with my knife for me to drill into. Then, I move on to the body, doing the same steps in the neck area. Finally, I put a dollop of superglue in the skull and put the brass rod in. Now let's attach it, and good. I haven't actually pinned anything before, so this went well. I decided he isn't looking battered enough, so I go back in with my knife, scoring a deep cut on his left shoulder plate and his neck plate. I always forget to drill my gun barrels, so let's do that too.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only Painted for Battle by Asri's Minis. This ultramarine chaplain carries the banner of the chapter, holding it aloft to inspire his brothers and to herald the death of their foes. By Marshy Mossart. This Night Lord from a tribal warband has just bloodied his knife from his last kill, stalking the forested mountains of his homeworld for more intruders. Will you be next? By Herbal Anxiety. The bladed whisper is a demon prince of Slanesh, joining with the Night Lord warband to ensure a truce between the Night Lords and the Emperor's children remains intact. If you want your miniatures featured on the next Painted for Battle, cast them over to the Asri's Minis Instagram. Back to the video.
Time for the chains. I want his gun to be chained to his hip, and this gun already has a link at the bottom of the grip for something to be attached. I cut a length of chain and carefully opened the gun link with my knife. I slide the chain I snipped into the gap and then closed it and sealed it shut with plastic glue. I then glued the hanging end of the chain to his waist where the other chains are, sticking it in that area which I filled in with sprue goo earlier. Then I went over the whole chain with a thin coat of superglue so that the gaps in between remain, but the chain doesn't swing around. Deliberating for a while on where to put the next bit of chain, I thought it looked best draped over the cut on his left shoulder plate. I thought it would be cool to have another skull hanging from his waist, so again I grabbed the Battlefield Trophies sprue and snipped off a battle-damaged skull. Removing yet more mold lines, I then cut an area out of the skull for a chain link to sit inside. I then glued on the chain to the skull and the hip before positioning it with my tweezers. And cool, that looks very good. More battle damage. I guess I want this guy to look really dead, so I took the knife to his left leg, right shoulder pad, and finally his backpack. Now for the bones. I grabbed this box of bones called Dead Animal Bits. I got these from a shop in Berlin a while back, so this feels like the perfect occasion to use them. German resin dust.
That won't kill you any slower than regular resin.
Maybe not, but it has a slight taste of bratwurst. I grabbed a rib cage off the sprue and start snipping ribs off. I'm going to glue these around his chest, but my big ass fingers keep getting in the way. Eventually, with assistance from my tweezers, one by one, they stick on, and yeah, the rib cage looks great. I'm leaving a gap around the bullet hole to make it look like he's been shot there, and lost some bones. Since I used so much superglue to put these on the chest, it's also a little crusty, so I'm going back in with my knife to smooth out the bones and the plastic underneath. I debated for a bit where to put this last rib, and I decided to keep the bones up towards the top of the model with the skull. So I stuck it onto his left pauldron, and that's the base model done. Time for the green stuff. Unwrapping my old green stuff, I cut off a section. I always cut the middle part out where the green and yellow strips meet because in my experience this part has hardened bits of green stuff that show through in the final mold. If you're unaware, green stuff stays malleable until you combine the blue and yellow strips, then it begins to harden. The more yellow you have mixed in, the longer the curing time and vice versa. though I tend to do an equal mix. I roll the green stuff together into a little ball before tearing a small chunk off. I attach this chunk to the skull at the back before grabbing my sculpting tools. These tools have soft shaped tips on one end and a hard metal tip on the other. They're extremely useful for both carving deep into the green stuff and also shaping it without losing any detail. In my opinion, it's best to dip these in water before use, especially the metal side, so it doesn't stick into the green stuff. I begin shaping the flames by pulling at the green stuff with my tweezers and scoring in the gaps between each flame strand with its sharp edge. Once the general form is achieved, I come back in with my soft-tipped tools to give it more shape and dimension, and also add some more subtle details, especially under the skull around the mouth. This process was very long, as I'm inexperienced at making flames, so I went back and forth between my tools for a while to get the shape I wanted. But in this time-lapse you can really see it coming together. I wanted some flames to be coming out of his eyes, so I tried pulling some of the green stuff forward, but it's a bit too thin and undefined, so I'll have to add more on soon. I also pinned the head back in place so I could shape the flames a bit more around the armor and see what it looked like. I grabbed more green stuff to add some more flames and stuck it on his head like a little hat, before sculpting it into a shape to match the rest. Then I stuck more green stuff around the eyes to define those areas. After my room was haunted for a bit, the flaming skull is finished. While I let that dry and do the same process for flames across the rest of the body, I'll give you some lore for the Legion of the Damned. The Legion of the Damned are a mysterious force of Astartes, appearing from seemingly nowhere across the galaxy at sites of the Imperium's worst conflicts, aiding the Imperials in their darkest hours. They are described as being donned in charred black armor, with bone and skull iconography across their armor. These burning behemoths are clearly supernatural. They shrug off even bolter fire as they march ceaselessly towards the enemy, heralding their doom. And once the battle is done, they disappear without leaving a trace. Their origins are debated, some believing they are the remnants of a lost chapter known as the Firehawks. Others argue they are some kind of warped manifestation of the betrayed souls on Istvan III. There are also rumors of a battle within the Webway, where a ghost legion of space marines led by a deceased Primarch are summoned by the Emperor to aid in battle. Could this be the first sighting of the Legion of the Damned? Without any clear evidence, we can never know. That's all the flames done. He looks pretty cool now, but onto the base. I flattened the last of my green stuff onto the base, pushing it against my cutting mat, which, funnily enough, leaves an imprint of squares for me to carve a shape out of. I want him to be standing on some kind of stone-tiled street after all. I press a brass rod into these imprints deep, creating the shape of the stone, before pressing it again, making smaller stone tiles. I then use my green stuff tools to add some damage like little chips and holes. I leave it to dry overnight and then cut away the green stuff spilling over the sides. Once that's done, I stab at the tiles with my drill to give them more texture. I decorate the base using these cool model bricks from Green Stuff World. I actually bought these from my Iron Warrior bases, but it will work for this too. I built a little rubble pile out of broken and whole bricks. This will be a shrine once I add more to it. I grab a resin skull, shave it down and put it on top of the pile. I then frantically search for my resin candles before realizing they were under my desk. You know, the more videos of these I make, the more I realize that Titus might be right. Nah, I probably just need more resin dust.
God Emperor, give me strength.
After finding the candles, I snip off a few and glue them to the shrine. I wonder why it's here. Could shrines like these have summoned the Legion? Putting him and the base together, they look excellent. I'm very excited to paint him, so let's get to it. He looks so much better than I thought he would. I usually avoid painting fire because of the OSL needed, and since I don't have an airbrush that makes it more difficult, but I really like how this came out. If you want your models featured in my next Painted for Battle, shoot them over to my Instagram. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and happy Halloween!